The Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
Welcome to the Shepnaz Podcast. It is
Worship Wednesday.
Yes. Ow!
Welcome.
We're back into the routine of things, you know.
It's good.
There was a couple weeks where we were lonely without Noah, and then
It was sad.
graciously he came back last week.
Graced
And
us
now
with his presence.
We have him back. We're still in our 21 days of prayer and fasting.
Yes, sir.
As everyone should know by now. Last week we started to talk about tacos,
Yes.
which is not a stretch for us to talk about tacos.
the best.
But now, after we've had our tacos,
What a perfect segue. What a perfect
see
segue.
where I was going with that?
Yeah.
What are we talking about, Zach?
Oh, well, we're going to be talking about fasting.
Of course.
Speaking of tacos.
No
What a
more
segue.
tacos.
No more
more-
tacos. No. Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about what it means to fast and pray. So we're in chapter 17 if you're following along in the book. I want to read these verses. I'll read the first one. Noah can read the second. Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen, to loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Then you will call and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help and he will say, here I am. And that's Isaiah 58, 6 through 9.
And then in Matthew chapter 17, verse 21, says, however, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting.
And we will talk about that verse here in a moment.
Wow.
Yes.
You know, guys, I'm really impressed. Like, you guys came here with a plan. Like, we opened this thing up, and
Right?
you read, and then you read, and like,
Oh, buddy.
wow, they rehearsed this.
We're growing.
We were in his office earlier just going over this.
Yeah.
How to,
We actually prepared a little
Like,
this
this
week.
is how we're
word
going
by
to talk when we get in front of Joe.
And that's as far as we got. So I'm just kidding. Totally
Please
kidding.
tell me, like, you brought up my picture, like, on an iPad and pretended I was with you.
Yep.
That would be nice.
I brought a full mannequin and printed out a picture of your face.
That's a scary looking thing in your office.
Yeah. Can't wait to use that later. People are going to lose it.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
nice.
love it.
All right.
So talking about Christian fasting.
Yes,
And I love how it just starts off like pretty blunt here. I think there's a lot of stuff in this chapter that's pretty blunt, and I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So it just starts off by asking, do you know much about Christian fasting? Excuse me. Do you know that Jesus expected his followers to fast repeatedly as a lifestyle? I was like, oh, that's kind of like,
Yeah.
didn't you know this was not like a suggestion, but an expectation? And often, so many times, I was actually just sharing with Noah, like I pulled out so much from this chapter, just because personally, like there's been a lot of times, like I've fasted a lot over my lifetime, but if I'm being honest, I was never really taught much of the intention behind fasting. It was just kind of like a thing that we do growing up. It's like, all right, well, it's that time of year, first of the year, you know what that means. Time to fast.
Yeah.
And so you give up your food and, you know, there's just like this, just a thing you did.
And of course, we try to tell people that fasting is not a diet plan, but then of course we schedule it at the same time when everybody's trying to start a diet,
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
right? And so that is a little messed up.
yeah. Try fasting around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, there you go.
Ooh. Yeah. That would
Really give up something.
really give us a whole holiday. No, I'm just teasing. But it is like, it's an expectation. In one of the first sections that just asks the question, why am I not fasting? And I think that's a really cool way of asking it. And the author goes on to say that he had to really change the way he looked at fasting. Let's see if I can find it. Said, I changed my thinking from why should I fast to why am I not fasting more?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, so many times it's like, all right, well, it's that time of year. I'm expected to fast, so I will fast. But then again, like I was saying, that I always went into it without intention. And that's something I really am getting out of this chapter specifically. It goes on to share the story of why he switched up the question. And he was burdened with 3 situations, which is the reason he wanted to fast. There were guys at his college that were in a horrible accident. One of his friends didn't have enough money to pay his tuition and was about to get kicked out. And I highlighted this whole section because this is something I really want us to hit, because I think this is important, especially with where we're at as a church and some of our goals we have coming up.
Yeah.
It said, third, I went to an all-Christian college and lived on campus. Everyone in my classes and in my dorms was a Christian. I worked on campus with all Christians. I could go for weeks without seeing a non-believer. A year earlier, I had told the Lord I want to try to share the gospel with a lost person at least once a week. I needed opportunities to share the gospel with the lost.
Yeah.
That to me hit real heavy.
Yeah.
Because it's oftentimes we make that a prayer. And it's like, okay, God, put somebody in my path today. You know, God, I want to reach the lost today. But to make it an intention of your prayer life while fasting, I thought was really powerful and cool. And it goes on to say when he started fasting, all these prayers got answered. But the expectation of reaching 50 people to Christ within the next 30 days was on his list.
Yeah.
And, you know, that seems like it's a big
Well, and he went
goal.
one step further. It's like, I want to see them come to Christ. Not
Yeah.
like I just want to, you know, have a chance to
Yeah.
kind of spread the news to 50 people, but like, I want to see 50 decisions in the next 30 days.
Yep.
And I'm not going to eat for 3 weeks to prove that I'm serious.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's where he was coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that shows dedication. That shows that he's not joking around. Like, this is the real deal. And goes on to tell the story about, I mean, it's super long. I don't want to read all of it, but between different situations, he was able to reach all 50 people, and he had got to 22. Yeah, is that right? 22 in the first week of fasting, but 28 was still a lot to go.
Yeah.
And so the new goal was 28. Goes on to say he had an opportunity to speak at a youth event, and just felt like the Lord was pressing, like, this is your time. Share. It was 100 kids there. He said, just share and share that desire you have in your heart for people to come to know Christ. Mm-hmm. And while they were wrapping up and asking people, they're like, you know, do we know how many people got saved? And he said it was exactly 28 people that got saved. And so it was intention of that prayer while fasting and proving that he meant it. God answered his prayer directly. It wasn't like you know, we'll get close. It was like, I want 50. God, give me 50, and I'm willing to prove to you that I'm willing to do what it takes through fasting and prayer and dedication. Mm-hmm. He saw all 50 of those come to know Christ.
Well, and that sure sounds like an answer to a prayer that God would want to give.
Yeah.
Like so many times we might be praying about things where it's like hard to predict what God would want in the situation. Mm-hmm. But, you know, when you're saying, I want to be able to share my faith and see 50 people come to Christ, that sure seems like a prayer that God will want to answer for you.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
So other thoughts?
So then it kind of goes into kind of fasting as that spiritual practice. Like there is kind of that, you know, you're abstaining from food, but you can also abstain from other activities. Mm-hmm. Some people have health limits, so you can't really do a full fast, but finding that thing and getting rid of it for a full 24 hours, I think is super important, however experience amount of time. But I think what's also important is I've done fasts before, and I've made myself more busy so that I wouldn't think about what I'm not eating, and that I'm not like taking that time, and defeated the whole purpose because I wasn't taking that time. And that's actually one of the suggestions we'll talk about later, is making yourself less busy during that time. But that is a thing. And I think what's super interesting is that all these scriptures in Matthew chapter 6, it says, when you give to the needy. Matthew chapter 6 also says, when you pray. And then it says, when you fast. So just as, you know, it's assuming that we're going to give to the needy, we're going to give to the poor, we are going to pray. It's also that we are going to fast. Jesus was very intentional about that wording, not if you choose to fast, but when you fast. Mm-hmm. So kind of switching that around about just that idea of why are we not fasting, it is something that Jesus was expecting us to do and had every intention on us to keep doing.
Yep.
So
absolutely. Next thing I really loved, I highlighted, was on the very next page, 131, under then the Lord will answer you. So the prophet Isaiah records many blessings available. Here's what I want to highlight: through properly motivated fasting.
Okay.
I'm going to read that again. Through properly motivated fasting. Again, like I had said, I know so many people who fast, and I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus, or, you know, this isn't a diss, because I was that guy too. I didn't have the right motivation. I didn't go into it with an intention. I was just like, this is something I have to do, so I'm going to do it. And well, maybe if I do the Daniel diet, then I'll lose some weight and feel a little better. But I never took advantage of being intentionally motivated and properly motivated to fast, like going into it with a game plan. Right. And then moving further down and just showing the importance of that. There's a story in Matthew 17. And it says Jesus was known for stating that the power to deliver from demons was linked to prayer and fasting.
Yep.
So when he cast a demon out of that guy, all these people are like, we've been trying to get that guy demon out of him forever. We've done everything we thought we needed to do. And he's like, oh no, this one only comes out through prayer and fasting. Right. And so there's power in fasting, not just a thing we do, but results come from fasting, including casting out demons. I mean, it's recorded in scripture. So I just thought that was really powerful and something important to point out. Yeah. You got something?
Just that next one. It's just somebody who has maybe never fasted or doesn't really know much about fasting. We were just kind of encourage you to try it. There's no harm in trying. Maybe you're in a situation where you don't know what's next and you need guidance. And I just love it's the same way that, that we would hunger for food, hungering for the Spirit of God and hungering for that relationship with God. And it's just a beautiful thing to try. Yeah. You're not really going to lose anything. And I think you'd be surprised how close you're going to feel to the Spirit and how God's really going to show up when you honor that and when you honor that time together. It doesn't have to be 40 days. It doesn't have to be 5 days. Any amount of time that you're setting aside to reach for that hunger, to reach that, to get close to the Spirit of God, I think is awesome.
Well, and there is obviously a discipline aspect of this, of like training yourself to do it. And maybe people have grown up and like that was never part of their experience. I know for me personally, it wasn't. I grew up in the church, but the tradition that I grew up with as a kid, that just, we never even talked about it. Yeah. Like, I kind of knew that was a thing, but like, it was just something that was kind of mysterious in the background and you didn't talk about it. And it was just kind of weird that way. And then when I got to be an adult, like I was reading scripture and the very passage it referred to in Matthew 6, I was convicted by that because it was saying, when you do this, when you do this, when you do this. And I'm like, why would I take two of them serious and not the other one? Right. And so I kind of embarked on that on my own, even though that really hadn't been something that I had been really discipled in, and started reading up some books on it and like different fasting methods and everything. And that could be a whole nother podcast. But then I realized as that was becoming a practice in my adult life that I needed to bring other people along with me. Like I needed to share that experience. And so in my personal life, there's been times when I have fasted with my wife or I fasted with my kids. I think without exception, there's been a time with at least one time with each of my kids or as a group that we were fasting and being able to share that experience of what was going on in our personal lives between us and Jesus, but also a closeness that came as a result of working that spiritual discipline together and learning what is this like and what am I experiencing. And like for those that have really dived into the fasting in the past, like, when you're like a week or so in with no food, like weird things start to happen. Like my tongue feels really big. And like, if you've not had those experiences, like it might seem really weird and like what's happening to me. And your body does go through some transitions and like, not everything that I normally do, I'm doing anymore. So like, it's, I think very good for us to although this is somewhat of a private practice between us and the Lord in our personal relationship, but I think it's good for us to be inclusive of those around us.
Yep.
And it may be a way to help someone take their next step to say, hey, I'm getting ready to do like just a day or two or a few days of fasting. Would you join with me as we really dive deep to pursue this together for God?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thoughts?
What I love, I had a friend in high school who was a part of the Islamic faith. And obviously I have some theological differences with him, but the devotion they have to fasting, I truly find extraordinary. Like I would watch him during Ramadan, where he would, from sun up to sundown, he wouldn't eat or drink water.
Wow.
And he would sit at the lunch table and he even played basketball. So he'd have to go through basketball practice and not drink any water. But it was just that discipline that he had and that he grew. It's something I admired, although we're obviously believe very different things, but just that commitment to that and the commit is something I was even wanting to explore and to do with Jesus. So I find that very, very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, Joe, one of the cool things at the end of the chapter with the suggestions section, a few things I wanted to point out. One of them really pertains to what you were just saying. The first one that really jumped out to me is, again, this was a conviction for me. Determine why you are fasting. What is it you want to ask the Lord to do? So even before going into a fast, taking time with the Lord and really seeking like, okay, God, what am I really going to seek you for in this? And again, kind of going into it with a game plan. There's nothing wrong with going into it with a game plan. The next one that jumped out is preparing yourself spiritually by repenting of any and every possible sin. Fasting cleanses your body while confession cleanses your heart. I thought that was powerful. Because again, we go into fasting a lot of just like, even if you go into it with this game plan so many times, it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to be here to get the thing done, but not going into it fully prepared of like, okay, God, what are the things that I need you to cleanse me of? Because fasting cleanses the heart. I thought that was like, whew, that one hit me hard.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And the last one, this is the one that pertains to what you were talking about. Number 9, it says, you may tell others about your fast, but do not boast.
Right.
I think that is so important. Like you had said, the idea of coming alongside each other, because let's be honest, fasting's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say like, yep, go do it. It's super fun all the time. You're going to love every second of it. So to be able to share with other believers who are going alongside that with you and saying, man, I'm struggling today. I really want to go get that cheeseburger, or I really want to fire up my social media accounts, or I really want to sit down and watch TV. I'm struggling. Can you pray with me? Can you give me some encouragement? But so often we see Christians of like, fasting with Jesus in my veggie tray, see the selfies, and it's like, nah, this is not what we're doing here.
Right.
So again, going into it with the right motivation, coming alongside each other, but not in a boastful way, I think is extremely important, because we're called to do this thing we call life together. So I think it's important.
All right. Well, I guess you've got some encouragement for the next time, even maybe today, you decide that you're going to fast either from food or some activity, something that is a normal part of your life. Our encouragement is to do something that actually costs you something in your life. That way it'll have more meaning for you, and obviously more meaning in your relationship with Jesus. We also encourage you to check out everything that's going on at the church by going to shepnaz.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We love it when you do all those likes, subscribes, comments, all those things. For Pastor Zack and Noah, I'm Joe. Have a great day. This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.